Welcome to my completely independent channel, good people, and today we are talking about A7 Mark V, and this is going to be my completely honest opinion. Yes, I have received this camera, but not for free, of course. I have to give it back from Sony, but everything I will say here is my personal experience with this camera, and I specifically waited for a long-term review because that's what I like to do. I like to go beyond, the spec sheet and just focus on the real life scenarios where you actually use this camera. So I have experienced a paid, like photo sessions, jobs on this camera. Both me and my wife, we both did a lot with A7 Mark V now. So I feel like I can say something that goes, as I said, beyond the obvious. So if you expect the basics, I think you can like search for other video, but it's been like all has been said about it. But now let's focus on the real thing. So I will divide this long-term review into a couple of sections, like ergonomical improvements, like image quality, video quality, stabilization, autofocus. So we will mention all that, and at the end I will mention, to me, the most important change that A7 V introduces, but it seems like nobody talks about it. So make sure to stay tuned and make sure to donate my channel or to leave thumbs up and subscribe, because that helps me a lot. Since it's a small channel and, as I said, very independent, your help helps me a lot. Now let's focus on A7 Mark V. So talking about this camera, ergonomically, of course, the main change here is this screen. This is absolutely game-changing, change. And before, I would say, okay, Sony system is great, but Panasonic does have the screen done right, where you can actually turn it like that, then flip it out, and however you want, you can have it. Now Sony does introduce this type of screen in their basic line, which is A7. That's great. The quality of screen, again, is very good. It was very good already on A7 Mark IV, but there's a slight improvement here. So we're getting a real boost here, and that makes actual difference. The rest, like buttons and joystick is pretty much okay. It was okay on A7 Mark III, it is okay at 7 Mark IV. I'm not the picky type of person, so it works. Second main difference, or second main improvement that makes a real life difference to me, is how it manages the battery. So before, let's say with A7 Mark III, if you left A7 Mark III turned on in your bag, then it could heat up and eat whole battery, and then you want to shoot and you are out of juice. Here, A7 Mark V is the champion of battery management. We took, for example, but as I said, this is one of the situations we use this camera in. We took it to Andalusia, like in Spain, for around 10 days, and we charged it like once or twice, but just in case not to run out of juice. But we could actually do 10 days, but it wasn't 10 days of photo shooting. It was vacation with some photo shooting, but we could do 10 days of traveling on one charge. And Sony cameras are great because you can charge it with any charger. Your phone charger is for sure okay to charge it. Of course, it will be slower, but it will charge. And we left the camera actually turned on in the bag, and there was still juice in the battery. It didn't eat anything practically. So power management in this camera is a big improvement, and to me, besides the screen, those are two things that are actually worth mentioning. Now let's talk about things that I've been asked many times by my friends. What about dynamic range? And you might think that this is the most important thing, but it's not. As I said, I leave it for the end. Dynamic range, now it's official, okay? It's tested, and we have the results. So dynamic range at A7 Mark III was great. At A7 Mark IV, it was a little worse, but it's 0.1 difference. So really, like, if you are thinking, okay, I'll pick A7 Mark III over A7 Mark IV, let's say, to have better dynamic range, it's really not the case. In both cases, it's very easy to work with those raw files. But A7 Mark V does have 0.1 improvement when it comes to dynamic range over previous generation, specifically A7 Mark III, which was very good with dynamic range. So still you have very good dynamic range. You have this over 30 megapixel resolution here, so nothing to complain, nothing to worry about in this case. So officially, yes, it does have slightly but almost a noticeably better dynamic range, which you can see on the samples here that I took specifically to test it. Very contrasty, where like in real life working with those files is extremely easy, so nothing to worry about. Now, whenever I mentioned like Sony cameras, I had reviews on my channel previously of those cameras, or long-term reviews, or should you buy this or that Sony camera in, let's say, 2025, 2026. I always mention like, okay, Sony is a great system. You have great hybrid cameras, very good price for what they offer, and extremely nice selection of lenses that are available on E-mount. Now, one of the things I always mention, but rolling shutter. Sony camera, rolling shutter. So whatever camera I mentioned, besides of course those high-end cameras, rolling shutter was always the case. Now, here we have this problem solved. Readout speed of this sensor's partially stacked sensor is so fast, it's a couple times faster than on A7 Mark IV, that rolling shutter is practically non-existent. Which means that if you want to do wildlife and sports and you are serious about it, combined with an amazing speed of this camera, an amazing buffer of this camera, where you can shoot 30 frames per second, no blackout, and you can shoot almost forever, like for this kind of shooting, obviously, then you have a cheaper entry to this world of sport and wildlife photography than, let's say, A1, A9 Mark III, and A9 Mark II, or other competitors like Canon R3, not to mention these super expensive cameras, where you can actually spend reasonable money and you can practically access the same functionalities that you have on those more expensive cameras. So dynamic range, great. Rolling shutter, problem solved. And again, one of the things that whenever you mention Sony, you have to mention is image stabilization. Image stabilization was not the best out there in Sony cameras. It was okay, you had like this optical image stabilization, digital image stabilization, and those worked okay. But me personally, I liked image stabilization in, for example, Fujifilm more, and Panasonic was always the best in its class for image stabilization. So no gimbal, like this gimbal here, I have it on a purpose here. So no gimbal, you were okay to do handheld. Now, Sony solves this problem. Finally, they catch up, or they are even better than Panasonic. On 20mm, I found some jello effect in the corners when you have both, optical image stabilization and digital image stabilization turned on, but that's a minor problem. In general, image stabilization works amazing. So no more Sony and image stabilization issues, okay? Like when it comes to A7 Mark V. The gimbal I have here, which is one of my favorite gimbals I've ever had, like very ergonomical gimbal, which is ZHIYUN. Let me check. ZHIYUN Weebill 3S. I believe this is how you pronounce it. I'll put link in the description below to affiliate link, because I like ZHIYUN and they work with me. So this is great. But in general, gimbals are gimbals. The image from gimbal is a different thing than from handheld image stabilized cameras. So those are two different things. You get different image from this one, you get different image from this one. This flying effect from gimbal is always the thing. So if you are thinking, oh, I'm going to sell my gimbal and buy a 7 Mark V, that's not necessarily the case. Those are different case scenarios, and I mentioned it on purpose because those are different tools. Coming back to A7 Mark V, autofocus performance. So, to be honest, from A7 Mark III onward, I was super happy about autofocus performance. But I work mainly with interior architecture, people, models, like a little slower pace of work. I don't do sports, I don't do wildlife, to be honest, because I don't like to, wake up in the morning 6 or 5 a.m. That's not my thing. But Autofocus on A7 Mark IV that me and my wife, we used for a long time on a lot of sessions was like completely enough. But this one is just better. It's faster, it's very intuitive, it's very good, but there's one difference that makes a whole lot of difference to me, which is automatic subject detection. A7 Mark IV had subject detection already, so you could detect bird, dog, or car, and that was fine. But in real life, before you choose, okay, I want to detect the car, or I want to detect the airplane, the subject is usually gone. That's my point. Here, because this CPU is integrated with AI accelerating CPU, or however you call it, like, AI accelerator, you have this new function, which is automatic subject detection. So you want to detect dog face or cat's face or bird's body or car or airplane, you are good to go. This camera will automatically detect it for you if you switch to automatic subject detection. And that actually makes subject detection, at least to me, actually useful. So that's a big difference and something to really keep in mind. Of course, Sony a7 Mark V does have a lot of improvement, like 4K, 60 frames per second, no crop, which is a big thing. But being completely honest, I was completely fine with most of the functions I had on A7 Mark IV, and this crop, I got used to it, that if I need 4K 60 frames per second, I just use crop, and that wasn't a big deal for me, but you have it. A lot of people may complain, before I get to the most important part, a lot of people may complain, okay, but Panasonic gives me this opportunity to to record my videos with LUT already applied. Here I can only preview, but I cannot apply it, I have to apply it in post. Yes, that's a limitation here. To my workflow, it doesn't make much difference, I don't care, but a lot of you may care. There's no open gate recording. You may say, okay, again, I never record open gate because it just makes those files too large. My hard drives are getting filled too fast, and I prefer 4K, 10 bits, good quality, no problems, and if I need to crop it, I crop it anyways for social media or for shorts, and that's completely fine with me. If, though, for some reason you need OpenGate, of course Panasonic, and strictly for video production, Panasonic still may offer you something, something more, something that you actually need. For example, S5 Mark II X or S9 as a budget-friendly option. Those cameras are amazing. But for video production with no rolling shutter, practically, this camera and this amazing autofocus, this camera is great. But the most important, to me, the most important change that actually makes A7 Mark V a real standout to me is the color science. With previous generations, a lot of you guys on this channel, or like friends that are also like in photo and video business, were asking me, but what about the colors? Should I go for Canon? Should I go for Nikon, sorry. Should I go for Fujifilm? Well, still those differences are there. If you want natural colors, I would say still Panasonic actually wins out of the box. Natural colors, Panasonic S5 Mark II X, for example, is doing a great job, S9 as well. However, taking into consideration that this is a very complete hybrid camera that is priced really nicely for what it has to offer, this color science, specifically skin tones, are the best so far. And that's very important, because these, all this conversation about which camera I should choose for the best colors can be actually closed. Because if you shoot with this one and you're not satisfied with skin tones, I don't know with what would you be satisfied regarding skin tones with. So in other words, this camera produces very good skin tones. It's a slight difference between 4 and 5. There was a big jump between 3 and 4, but between 4 and 5, it's a slight difference. But there is a difference, and they nailed it. And this camera produces very good skin tones. If you prefer Canon colors, just go for Canon. If you prefer Panasonic or Fujifilm, like I have my second camera is Fujifilm because of the colors and because of you know, I just like Fujifilm. It's not a very reliable camera system, but it's wonderful. I just love it. That's not why you buy Fujifilm, right? But this camera as a workhorse is just doing great. So to sum up, should you upgrade right now, or should you maybe wait one generation more? I don't know. I don't know how to answer this question. I like A7 Mark V, but if you're happy with your A7 Mark IV, I wouldn't rush to buy the new one. It's a great upgrade, and we've paired with amazing zoom lens that I discovered not long time ago, which is 20-70 f4. You can take it for 1 or 2 months traveling around the world, and you will rarely want to change the lens, and you will rarely come across any limitation this camera has, you know, for you. No limitations, basically. But if you are happy with your A7 Mark III, or you are happy with your A7 Mark IV, and this is, you know, enough for your needs, enough for your workflow, then maybe it's not time to rush, and maybe you can wait one generation more until like Sony unlocks a couple of features like, you know, LUT applied directly to your video, or open gate recording, or maybe a little bit more resolution, or 8K recording. I don't know. Maybe it's time to still wait one generation. Maybe it's still time to wait one generation. Sorry, my phone started to ring. But still, A7 Mark V, no doubt, is the most complete hybrid camera, specifically in A7, you know, this basic full-frame lineup of Sony. And never before buying this camera was such a no-brainer, at least to me, when it comes to possibilities versus price. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please don't forget to leave thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to donate if you can. Buy me a coffee. It really helps me to create this honest and like real life experience content. And you could see a lot of samples here that we actually did with our clients, that we actually did for living. So this is a real life experience regarding A7 Mark V. If you enjoyed it, once again, thumbs up. See you in the next one. Subscribe, donate, and see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.